Welcome to 1189, an online Bible commentary. My name is Tyler Marston, and today we're taking a look at Matthew chapter 25. So this chapter wraps up the fifth and final discourse that Matthew has built his gospel around. The first half included apocalyptic oracles about both the destruction of Jerusalem and of the coming final judgment. And we left Jesus with a warning to his followers to stay vigilant and stay alert. While the destruction of Jerusalem is going to have many signs building up to it, the arrival of the Son of Man, the final judgment, that's going to happen all at once. As a result, we should continue to follow Jesus, to do good works in his name, and spread his message of his kingdom throughout all the world. This chapter will emphasize that point through parables, and, like the Sermon on the Mount, will leave his followers with a choice. Then the kingdom of heaven will be comparable to 10 virgins, who took their lamps and went out to meet the bridegroom. 5 of them were foolish, and 5 were prudent. For when the foolish took their lamps, they took no oil with them, but the prudent took oil in their flasks along with their lamps. So the first story Jesus tells is the parable of the 10 virgins. Matthew Henry's commentary on this chapter illustrates the important job that these virgins, these bridesmaids, had at the wedding. At weddings today, we have a line of sparklers to send the couple off. But in this culture, the bridesmaids would line the street with lamps in order to welcome the groom in to the bride's house. Jesus says that 5 of the girls were foolish and didn't take any extra oil for their lamps, while the other 5 were prudent and did. Now, while the bridegroom was delaying, they all got drowsy and began to sleep. But at midnight there was a shout, "Behold, the bridegroom, come out to meet him." Then all those virgins rose and trimmed their lamps. The foolish said to the prudent, "Give us some of your oil, for our lamps are going out." But the prudent answered, "No, there will not be enough for us and you too. Go instead to the dealers and buy some for yourselves." And while they were going away to make the purchase, the bridegroom came. And those who were ready went in with him to the wedding feast, and the door was shut. So the groom ends up getting delayed. He can't come to the wedding as quickly as he thought he would be able to. When he finally shows up, the foolish maid's lamps have burned down to the point where they're out of oil. They have to go all the way into town to buy more oil, and they end up missing the groom's arrival. Meanwhile, the prudent ones, the ones who brought extra oil for their lamps, they're able to join the party. Later, the other virgins also came, saying, "Lord, Lord, open the door for us." But he answered, "Truly I say to you, I do not know you. Be on the alert then, for you do not know the day nor the hour." And so when the foolish maids try to get back into the party, they're shut out. The groom doesn't recognize him because they weren't prepared to meet him. Jesus' point in this parable is that we are like the virgins and he is like the groom. One day, Jesus will return to set the whole world right, and the biggest party on earth will begin and never end. Loyal followers of Christ who were doing their jobs beforehand will be ready for that arrival and will get into the party. But others are going to miss out because they weren't prepared. For it is just like a man about to go on a journey, who called his own slaves and entrusted his possessions to them. To one he gave 5 talents, to another 2, and to another 1, each according to his own ability, and he went on his journey. The next story Jesus tells is called the parable of the talents. A man gets up to go on a long journey and entrusts his finances with 3 of his servants. Now 1 talent is equivalent to 15 years worth of wages for a laborer, so this isn't chump change. And he entrusts each of the servants with a different amount, according to their ability. It illustrates that whatever we have, whether it's wealth or time or resources, what we have in our lives, the amount is not as important as what we do with it. Immediately, the one who had received the 5 talents went and traded with them, and he gained 5 more talents. In the same manner, the one who had received the 2 talents gained 2 more. But he who received the 1 talent went away and dug a hole in the ground and hid his master's money. The servants who were given the 5 talents and the 2 talents, they were able to double that money by making savvy business investments. Meanwhile, the servant given 1 talent goes and buries it underground. And why he does so is still a mystery for right now. Now, after a long time, the master of those slaves came and settled accounts with them. The one who had received the 5 talents came up and brought 5 more talents, saying, "Master, you entrusted 5 talents to me. See, I have gained 5 more talents." His master said to him, "Well done, good and faithful slave. You were faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Enter into the joy of your master." And the one who had received the 2 talents came up and said, Master, you entrusted 2 talents to me. See, I have gained 2 more talents. His master said to him, Well done, good and faithful slave. You were faithful with a few things, and I will put you in charge of many things. Enter into the joy of your master. For the 2 servants that increase their master's wealth, they get rewarded with stewardship over more possessions. The master is proud of them and joyfully accepts them. Again, even though one came back with 10 talents and one came back with only 4, what's important is that they both made a profit. They did something with it. The care and good stewardship they exhibited was more important than the literal amount of money. And the one also who had received the 1 talent came up and said, Master, I knew you to be a hard man, reaping where you did not sow and gathering where you scattered no seed. And I was afraid and went and hid your talent in the ground. See, have what is yours. But his master answered and said to him, You wicked, lazy slave, you knew that I reap where I did not sow and gather where I scattered no seed. Then you ought to have put my money in the bank. On my arrival, I at least would have received my money back with interest. So meanwhile, the foolish steward gets reprimanded for how he handled the money. He says he acted that way out of fear of the master, knowing him to be harsh and exacting with his possessions. The master says if the servant was really scared of him, he would have at least put the money in the bank, and that way it could have accumulated interest for when the master got back. To me, it evokes Proverbs 9, which says that the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. We make good choices when we have a proper awe and reverence for God. And this parable relates to how we'll all give an account for what we did for God in the final judgment. He's entrusted us with so many things to make his kingdom grow. That includes wealth, but it also includes physical gifts and abilities. It includes families, influence, resources, time. And what really matters is how we use those resources God has given us to grow his kingdom. Therefore, take away the talent from him and give it to the one who has the 10 talents. For to everyone who has, more shall be given, and he will have an abundance. But from the one who does not have, even what he does have shall be taken away. Throw out the worthless slave into the outer darkness. In that place there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. The parable ends with the one who had 10 talents even getting credit for the 1 talent given to the foolish steward. And there, Jesus repeats his statement from chapter 13 about the people who already have getting more in order to get an abundance. Though in chapter 13 and here, it's not necessarily about physical wealth, it's about wisdom and blessings that you get from following Jesus. But when the Son of Man comes in his glory and all the angels with him, then he will sit on his glorious throne. All the nations will be gathered before him, and he will separate them from one another, as the shepherd separates the sheep from the goats. And he will put the sheep on his right and the goats on his left. The last story in this chapter sets up how God will divide people on the final judgment into proverbial sheep and goats. Now there's shepherd imagery all through the Bible, but this specific story really leans on Ezekiel chapter 34. In that chapter, there's a coming prophecy about a shepherd who is going to gather up all the abused and lost sheep, and he's going to rescue them from and punish the corrupt shepherds of Israel. But he's also going to rescue them from and punish the corrupt, fat, selfish sheep in the flock itself. And here Jesus uses that same idea, separating the flock from itself, into separating sheep from goats. Then the king will say to those on his right, Come, you who are blessed of my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you invited me in. Naked, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you visited me. I was in prison, and you came to me. Then the righteous will answer him, Lord, when did we see you hungry, or feed you, or thirsty, and give you something to drink? When did we see you a stranger, and invite you in, or naked, and clothe you? When did we see you sick, or in prison, and come to you? The king will answer and say to them, Truly I say to you, to the extent that you did it to one of these brothers of mine, even the least of them, you did it to me. Then he will also say to those on his left, Depart from me, accursed ones, into the eternal fire which has been prepared for the devil and his angels. For I was hungry, you gave me nothing to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me nothing to drink. I was a stranger, and you did not invite me in. Naked, and you did not clothe me. Sick and in prison, and you did not visit me. Then they themselves will also answer, Lord, when did we see you hungry or thirsty or a stranger or naked or sick or in prison and did not take care of you? Then he will answer them, truly I say to you, to the extent that you did not do it to one of the least of these, you did not do it to me. These will go away into eternal punishment, but the righteous into eternal life. And so with the divided peoples, God sends some of them to eternal life and others to eternal punishment. And the difference in the lives of the two people is that one helps and the other doesn't. One is self-sacrificing and the other is selfish. One reflects God's image, the other becomes an idol. On top of that, Jesus says that whenever we help even the least of the brethren, we're not only taking care of them, but we're ministering to God himself. And this ending implies a choice that we have to make. Are we going to serve God like that? We've talked at length about how the Pharisees say they follow God, but they don't reflect his attributes. And it's incredibly easy for professing Christ followers today to do the same. When we truly follow Jesus, he changes us, and he allows us to reflect God's attributes. He allows us to do good works with the blessings and the gifts he's given us. He allows us to enter the party of new creation, which is why we should continue to do those good works in his name, preaching his gospel the whole time. And those who don't follow his way don't get to experience that. So the question is, what will you do? Thanks for watching 1189. I hope you have a good day, and God bless.